Hi, it's Rich Tarani. Thanks for watching TMC Net's Editor's Day Santa Clara 2015. On our program is Jules Walker. He's with KPMG. And Jules, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Rich. Good to be here.
So I should start off by telling the audience, a lot of times I'll re-interview people over and over, having known them maybe for 10 or 20 years. But with you, we actually go back to 5th grade, which is, I think you're the...
You interviewed me in 5th grade.
So I don't think I've interviewed, I've never known anyone that long and seen them on camera. So really thrilled that we happen to pick the same career path, more or less, technology, and you're in Silicon Valley. We're still in Connecticut, where you used to live. So what are you doing at KPMG now?
So for those that don't know, KPMG is one of the big 4 accounting firms. We are not a radio station. And we have a group we call our VC practice, which means we focus on venture capital-backed companies. And my role is business development, and I handle the Western U.S. So my day job is I'm looking for the next Facebook, the next Google, the next Uber, and bring them into the firm as a client.
So what benefits do you provide for them when they come to you? Is it just funding, or what other things do you do?
It's not funding, but it's everything else. So the great thing, one of the great things about working for such a large company is that we do almost anything from a consulting advisory perspective. Oftentimes people will come to me and say, hey, I can't use you for audit and tax work, but what we really need help in is X. Can you guys do that? And my response is, I'm not sure, but let me go find out. And inevitably we can do X. So that's one of the things I love about working for the firm. Besides that, we can do everything from soup to nuts, taking a company from 2 guys in a garage all the way through GE size. So almost anything they would need from an advisory perspective.
So really, I mean, it's good to have a company like yours if you're a startup to really lean on to get the expert advice to grow to the next level.
Yes and no. As a startup who's tight on cash, I often will counsel them to say, hey, let's stay in touch. I could do some stuff for you kind of gratis, but when you start talking about our core services, our real value add stuff that we charge for, probably more a later stage.
So they need to have the funding to be able to...
Yes, and in my role as business development, I'm following the money. That's a common refrain that I use. But when I see a company that gets a $20 million Series B round from Andreessen Horowitz, Scale Ventures, et cetera, I'm going to hit them up and see if I know management, if I know a board member, and see what they're doing. The nice thing about today versus 10 or 15 years ago is our lead-in was generally, do you need an audit? Not very sexy, but that's usually the first trigger of what they need a KPMG or another Big Four for. But these days, companies, you'll talk to CEOs, and they'll be like, well, I woke up and all of a sudden we had a PO from Romania, or we're doing business in Taiwan. So they're going international kind of despite themselves with this internet economy. Once you go international, you really should be getting some advice from lawyers and accountants from a people perspective, from office location, from an IP perspective, all those areas. So we're engaging earlier these days than we did in the past for those reasons.
Oh, it's interesting you're mentioning that, and it just triggered in my mind that the tech market has really used some innovative tax strategies in dealing with Europe and revenue. So, I mean, if you're going to be competitive, you have to at least consider some of the latest tax strategies.
You do, and those tax strategies have been taking a little bit of a hit lately. Actually, both positive and negative. Last week I was in Ireland for Web Summit, and we had a booth which we shared with our colleagues from Ireland, from England, from Israel, from China, a bunch of other countries. And the Irish guys were the ones that were the busiest because we happened to be in Dublin, but besides that, the Irish tax strategies is very popular. And you're a growing company, you're doing a lot of business overseas, you want to be able to plan that early, and so we can help out with that.
And whether it takes a hit or not, the reality is that companies have to use legal strategies to compete effectively against other companies that use legal strategies, and if you don't, you're putting yourself at a disadvantage, and it hurts your employees, it hurts your shareholders, and you just got to do it, and your investors, you got to do what you got to do.
Well said. I agree.
How do you differentiate KPMG from other players in the market?
So we are one of the big four. 4 large global firms. We all compete pretty head-to-head. We each have different industries where we're the market leader. One of the things we've done on a local and a national level from an audit perspective, and I'll try not to geek out on audit too much, but we have developed a team, we call it our pool, where the pool focuses specifically on startups and young companies. The historic model, and one that KPMG has used historically and does still in many jurisdictions, is you have your team on public companies. So down the street is Cisco. So the team at Cisco is working out there 10, 11 months a year full-time. I mean, they're practically Cisco employees. That other 1 to 2 months, the firm has to find billable time for the team out there. So what are they doing? Well, they throw them on startups. So the team, bright, young people, know what they're doing, but they're thinking Cisco-wise as far as what they're asking for, what they're checking, the things that they're looking at from an audit perspective. We turned that on its head. We said, you know what, let's come up with a team of people, a pool of people that works only with startups. And so their mentality is very much like the entrepreneur. We don't need to audit everything. There's a couple of things we need to audit. So let's focus on those. Let's just ask questions about those. We were working with a SaaS company yesterday. This is a SaaS company. Very similar. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm asking. So it's been that approach.
So you basically have a team of people with best practices for the kind of organization that you're targeting.
Exactly. And again, best practices focused on young companies that don't necessarily have the resources to address everything we need. So we come in as this big consulting firm, say, okay, we're here to audit you. Here's a list of all the things we need. If you're a controller and maybe an accounting manager, that's the extent of your finance team, and that's kind of a mature finance team in many companies, they're not ready for that. So then you have these 3, 4, 5, 25-year-olds sitting in the one conference room the company has, waiting for this information to come back. That's valuable real estate, especially in San Francisco, that one conference room. You probably don't have it available. And you feel like they're just sitting there wasting their time, and you're over here working, trying to get the information that they need. We don't do that. We'll say, here's the list of stuff we need, and then we go work on audit 2, audit 3. And when they're ready, we come back to audit 1. So people that have been around, CFOs, controllers, that have had that original experience, they love our new model. It's not that new anymore. We've been doing it for about 3 or 4 years.
That's great.
And we're rolling it out across the country now. We started here in Silicon Valley just because the number of startups has been able to sustain a practice like that. We're doing it now in the Northeast and starting to roll it around across the country.
So you're in a great position to answer whether or not the people you talk to believe that we're in a valuation bubble of some kind, an asset bubble of some kind. What are your thoughts?
So I'll give you a personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the firm. I think we're certainly... I don't think bubble's the right word. I think that valuations have gotten a little out of hand. Nobody wants to be left behind. I always enjoy when I'm at a function, a conference, and there's VCs, a panel, and they get asked the questions, which ones didn't you invest in that you wish you had? And most of them are very honest about it. It's almost a rite of passage. I missed on X, I missed on Y. But you don't want to have an answer to that question, right?
Right.
So it's caused valuations to really crank up. And one of the things that I do, so ultimately I'm trying to get referrals from VCs. And the reality is all the VCs in Silicon Valley have seen all the deals that I'm going to see. So there's not a real value add there. But when I meet companies that are outside the area, and I think they have something there, I'll introduce them to VCs here. And there's some value add there. So they're trying to find the ones that the guys down Sand Hill Road haven't seen yet. And they want to be the first ones in there. Having said that, valuations have certainly inflated quite a bit, and we're seeing some backlash of that now. And I think it's healthy market machinations that are going on right now. Things are pulling back. One of our clients is Square, and they just announced that they did their filing and they priced. And the price came in significantly below their last valuation at their last VC round. I don't think it's a reflection of the business. I think it's more a reflection of the climate at the time they got that last money.
Sure.
To their credit, they got the money, and it allowed them to sustain to this point and beyond. I think the market is starting to level set that, which is healthy.
It's very healthy because we don't want to see another 2000, 2001 if we can help it.
And I think it's very different. I think now these are real businesses. The internet economy is such with the AWSs of the world, Microsofts, Googles of the world that are being that foundation of technology, the backbone of the pipes, if you will. that's allowing everybody, two guys in a garage, to start a company. We have an idea. We can code a few lines. We're going to use AWS and go to market and then iterate. And I think that's so exciting.
And that's, I mean, from where I look at, that's just half of it. The other half is you have your Google and your Apple App Store. So you have your back end in the cloud that you don't have to build, and you have your front end retail distribution dealt with by Google and Apple. So you literally just have to worry about the idea and figuring out how to get the front end and the back end to work, and the rest of it, the distribution and just servicing, is all handled for you. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing this amazing pace of innovative ideas, and they're rapidly cranking out.
I think it's very exciting. What you described was well said. I am concerned about that as well. I don't know what the current count is on the App Store, but it's in the millions. How does a couple guys, a couple gals with a great idea and an app, how do they get exposure? They hit the App Store, they immediately move to the back of the line, unless there's some traction. I think that's the challenge of today, is getting it out there and getting mentioned by publications like yours as far as a cool thing people should check out. But it's so crowded now. I think that's a risk of a lot of these guys.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a big challenge, but in competitive markets, that's how it is. But that, maybe that'll be the undoing, and maybe that'll be part of the reset where things will slow down even further. Because I remember during the .com days, you had two competitors that were in the telecom space in one city. All of a sudden, you had 12 or 15 competitors. So you went from 2 to 15, and eventually that was unsustainable. So I think a similar thing will happen. The only difference is that the cost now to develop those 15 apps that all do the same thing is much less than it would have been, meaning that the one that's got better marketing, better sales, maybe has got some connections, can potentially leapfrog all the other ones. And none of them have really spent a lot of money, and the VCs are not really out of pocket more than a relatively small amount of money compared to back in the day when you had to buy an expensive Sun server, a bunch of Sun servers, and build all the infrastructure and do everything yourself.
I agree. The cost of go-to-market has lopped off a couple of zeros from back then. So, yeah, we can do it easily. And I think you make a great point. Arguably, it's the marketing that really is the driver. I think a lot of marketing people like hearing that.
No, absolutely.
But, yeah, it's sales and marketing that is driving a lot of that, especially when it's competitive. But back in the day, I mean, my favorite was the 5th dog food delivery service that came out. Like that was kind of Armageddon. That's when we reached it.
That sock puppet was just, that did it.
So I don't think we're seeing that these days, and there is more of a shakeout now. And so that 5th one, if they don't have the marketing and sales machine behind it, it's not going to work.
So, great. So, closing statement, give me the 30 seconds on why early stage companies should come to KPMG and contact you.
Thank you for that form. So KPMG, large global firm, we're doing a lot of things with some cool companies. Tax strategies, or how to go to new markets, or just getting your financial statements in order. We can do a lot of things to help you get to that next level of success. And that's across the board, not just U.S., but I have colleagues all over the world that are helping startups become the next great company. And we'd love to ride that wave with you.
Thanks, Jules. Thanks for being here. This was great.
Good to see you, Rich.